Guys, welcome back to another episode of SoCal Watch Reviews. I'm Miguel. This is episode 13. We got P under the line. P, how's it going?
What's going on? It's your boy P. Ross back in the building. What's good?
Hey, man. So check it out. Season 1 is coming to a close with episode 13. That's crazy, right? I mean, 13 episodes. Who would have thought? Well,
yes, sir.
Yeah, today we actually got a pretty special guest, and I am honored, or we are honored, to have him, do the podcast with us, and it's pretty cool with the things that he's doing and the things that he's gonna do. His name is Darren Tiffany from DM Tiffany. Darren, how's it going?
Great. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Doing fantastic.
Doing great, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely gearing up for Christmas. How about you guys?
Oh yeah, I'm getting it in. I'm not prepared yet, but I'll be prepared by Christmas. So,
what about you, Darren?
Yeah, man, it's a hectic time of year. Got a whole lot going on, a whole lot on my plate.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been a little crazy. I went to the store yesterday, and oh god, it's just insane. It's like people running all over the place. It seems like Black Friday. I'm like, well, look, I'm happy that the economy is doing great and everybody's here in the store. Because I remember when the economy kind of crashed, it was dead. It was pretty sad. I remember those times. It's cool that it's picking up, but it sucks for people if you just want to go grocery shopping. It stinks. But for those of you that don't know you, Darren, you have a really, really cool story. And what you do is incredible. So why don't we start off by maybe telling the people where they could find you, so that way as they listen along, maybe they could pause it and go to your Instagram account and check out what we're talking about, because it's very hard to describe.
Yeah, definitely. So you can follow me on Instagram at DM Tiffany Time Pieces on Instagram. I've just been documenting my progress in building some custom handmade watches. And just as a couple of months ago, I started production run. So I'm making 20 watches that'll be commercially available, hopefully within the next few months.
Sounds good. Well, before we move forward, you did an episode of 40 and 20. Our guys over there are friends. An incredible episode. I mean, that's why I called you, and I reached out to you because I heard it, and it was just incredible. I went to your Instagram page, and I told P about it. I'm like, hey, man, there's this guy making his own watches, and he's here in Arizona, and he just basically self-taught, and he bought his machine. In fact, he made a machine. It's crazy, not everybody has those kind of talents. And P's like, oh man, we need to get this guy on the show if he's willing to.
Absolutely.
Because we're watch lovers. It doesn't matter if it's a micro brand or a big brand or whatever it is. We appreciate timepieces and we appreciate people like you. So in that episode, you covered a lot of things. Basically, it was like your origin story, if you will. And I don't want to repeat what they said. So if anybody listening, you haven't, if you're listening to this episode, I recommend you listen to 40 and 20 and check it out. But let's put it in a nutshell for people, if you will, how you started. Then you had a Mark 1, you had a Mark 2, and then kind of we'll pick up from there if you don't mind. Yeah,
definitely. So just to keep it brief. So in March, I think it's around April of 2018, I decided to pursue my interest of making my own watch. And so I went and bought a little benchtop milling machine and watched a ton of YouTube videos to figure out how to machine, while at the same time trying to figure out how to make a watch case. I have no formal machining training and definitely no watchmaking training. So like you said, everything is self-taught, just figuring it out on my own, or reaching out to some really helpful people in the industry that have given me some guidance. Just kind of figuring out how to machine and making the mistake of starting with stainless steel on a benchtop milling machine, which was not the easiest material to learn on, but I think I've made some pretty good progress. So I finished my first watch. It was just kind of working on weekends and whenever I had spare time. I didn't finish it until December of last year. And then I finished that watch right before Christmas time, and I packaged it up and gave it to my dad for Christmas, and he was super excited to get that. And so that's the watch I refer to as Mark 1. So it's the very first watch that I ever made. And then a couple months ago, I just finished my prototype for Mark 2, and this is my personal watch. It's actually what I'm wearing right now. It was kind of the reiteration of Mark 1. So similar case shape, similar design cues, but in my opinion, executed a lot better. So I've since purchased some additional equipment that helped me get to a better platform here. I bought a lathe. I bought a larger milling machine, so I was able to do some threading operations and bring the case dimensions closer to what I really wanted to get to in the first place. So this Mark II prototype is it's right around 8.5 millimeters thick, so it's super thin. It's running a ETA 2892 movement, kind of a 70s era sports watch style on the case with an integrated rubber strap and some custom links that I machined as well. So really happy to have this on my wrist. And after I finished this, or really as I was going through the process of making Mark II, I was building fixtures to be able to make the process more repeatable, just so I can do this small production run and get some commercially available watches out there to the market. Hopefully people like my designs as much as I do.
Yeah, I love them. I think they're super cool. So you mentioned you're using the ETA movements, and I know you had also mentioned about the scarcity of them, of course, because the Swatch Group are tight and they don't want to sell them openly to the market or whatever. But what can you? I know what movement you're leaning towards or your goals are. Do you mind sharing that with people and why?
Yeah, definitely. So ETA movements, they're still available, right? Because there's a lot of aftermarket and after sales support, and a lot of watchmakers still need parts. So you can still buy entire movements, but the retail price on them has gotten pretty high. So like for a top grade 2892, it's through like Start Time Supply, it's upwards of like $350 for an ETA movement. And so it's getting pretty pricey. And I had an awesome opportunity to meet with a gentleman from a movement manufacturer called Vaucher. And they're based in Switzerland, and they make some really, really high-end movements, and they work with a lot of well-renowned brands. And they actually sell movements to small independent watchmakers, and kind of the stars aligned. I got to meet up with him in Vegas and talk some numbers and figure out some different movement options. And so instead of going with the ETA movement, I'm actually going to be using Vaucher VMF 3002, and it's really similar dimensionally to the 2892, so about the same thickness and the same diameter, but the finishing is on like a whole different level. And so I'm really excited to get my hands on some of these movements. And
now, I guess the question is, I mean, you're talking Holy Trinity here. I mean, these guys, if they're working with AP, you mentioned something about the ETA 2892 being a little pricey in the $300 range. Now, you don't have to tell us how much you're going to pay for that BMF movement, but is in the same range? Is it more expensive?
Yeah, it's definitely more expensive. It's about twice as expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you're not doing it so much for the price point. Obviously, you're doing it more for the prestige, because you want the community, real enthusiasts, to basically love your watch, because the design is awesome. But unfortunately, if okay, let's put it this way: if your watch looked the way that it looks, but it was just a Chinese quartz movement, believe me, I think a lot of people wouldn't be talking to you right now. But the fact that you actually care that much, kudos to you. You know what I mean? And furthermore, to be honest with you, I know the way that your watches are designed, the case back, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't take it off, right? It's kind of like integrated into the case to up the water resistance. Is that the way that it is?
No, the case back comes off. So
it does come off? Okay.
Yeah, my case design is a little bit different than I've seen anywhere else. So the case body itself, so it's sort of like a sandwich. So the case body itself is threaded entirely through. And then the bezel and the case back both thread on to the case, and they're both gasketed. So I can get a really tight seal on silicone gaskets in there, and it helps out with water resistance a lot.
Got it. Well, the reason I brought that up is because of the movement like that. I mean, and you say it has some really nice finishing. It'll be really cool to get like a clear display case back on it. You know, I'm a sucker for that. I know some people don't like it. Some people think it's like, well, if it's going to be kind of a rugged watch and it's going to go in the water or whatever, you don't want that. But I love looking at my little movements on my Sarb, you know, Seiko Sarb, and it's not the best movement, but I think it's really cool. You know, is that are you considering that, or is that not a thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be a crime punishable by death if I didn't put display backs on these watches.
Oh my god. Okay, now we're talking. Now you're elevating this to a different
Yeah, they'll
level.
definitely have sapphire case backs.
Okay, cool. So before we move on to the questions that we kind of have for you, why don't we run down through the specs of what this Mark II is looking like? All the dimensions. Are you using acrylic, mineral crystal? Just anything and everything that you could tell us about the watch, just so we and the listeners can get an idea of what to expect.
Especially that dial.
Oh, we'll talk about that. Believe me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Mark II, it'll probably change name when I kind of do the official launch of the watch. But it's 38 millimeters case diameter. The total thickness, it may vary. So I still need to play around with those display backs and figure out how much thickness that's going to add.
Right.
But I want to stay right around 8.5 millimeters, between 8.5 and 9 millimeters thick. So really, really thin. The lug width is 24 millimeters. And so that's outside of lug to outside lug. It's a integrated strap bracelet style watch with custom stainless lug adapters. So it kind of goes from the case to the bracelet. If you check out my Instagram, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about.
Right.
Lug to lug dimension is 49 millimeters. The dial is German silver. So it's like a nickel silver alloy. There's actually no silver in it. I don't know why it's called German silver, nickel silver, but it's a really awesome alloy. It engraves really well. It doesn't tarnish, and it takes coatings really well, even enamel. So,
oh wow!
Like I mentioned on the 40 and 20 podcast, I built a Rose engine machine for doing guilloche. So all of the dials will be hand guilloched. Each dial will be a little bit different. It's just really kind of playing with different patterns, coming up with dials that I like, and then putting them in the watches. So the watches aren't going to be identical dial-wise and color scheme-wise. The strap, so the watches will come with a handmade leather strap. So there's a really awesome strap maker here local to me. So she's out in Mesa. I'm just in Phoenix. So she's maybe like 30 minutes south of me, who makes really incredible leather straps. She works with a lot of independent brands as well. So really excited to get some samples from her and get the ball rolling on that.
Well,
sapphire crystal front and back.
Oh, nice. Okay. Lume on the hands, right? I think I saw a little bit of lume.
Yeah, on the prototype hands. So I'm still debating what I want to do with the production hands. I really want to figure out how to make hands in-house. I don't know if that'll fit into the time scheme of getting these first production units out, but we'll see.
So do you like lume? I mean, it's a sports watch. I'm assuming you are gonna put some lume on there, or you're not, or
if it fits with the scheme. I don't know. Personally, I'm not a tremendous lume fan.
Are you serious?
Well, so I have a ball watch, and with all the tritium in there, and after having like a full tritium watch, having lume, I don't know. It doesn't really do it for me. So we'll see. I'll throw some options out there maybe.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk and watch enthusiasts, forums or whatever. So anything that's like a dress piece, they're like, oh no, I can't have lume. But anything that's more like a sports watch, they obviously like lume because you're going to be taking this watch places, right? Diving and whatever. So, but whatever. I mean, you are the designer, you're in the engineer, and whatever speaks to you is what you're going to do. But let's talk about a release date, because in that episode with 40 and 20, you mentioned that December 15th was going to be your projected date for sale, right? For at least having one of these watches for sale, and then also having your own website, have it launched, because I know you already bought the domain name. So how are you on track? Are you not? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so for production, unless there's some sort of miracle, I'm not going to have anything ready next week for for sale, but I'm definitely in the process. So any spare time that I have, I'm out in the shop milling cases and working on parts. Um, I don't have like a real deadline. I mean, I need to order the movements and wait for those to come in from Switzerland, and there's kind of compounding time frames that are adding up here. But definitely within quarter 1 of 2020, I'll have something, and that's for sure. So that's like a hard goal that I've set for myself, especially with being self-funded. So maybe that's worth mentioning. There's no pre-orders. I'm not doing crowdfunding. Everything that I'm doing is entirely funded by myself. And it really gives me the freedom to make stuff that I like, right? And I think that's kind of the goal at the end of the day is make a bunch of watches that I love, that are really from me and me alone, and then put them out into the market and see how the market reacts to it.
Speaking of that, it seems like a passion. You know what I mean? Instead of a actual business venture, like something that you love and something that you want to do, which is actually like inspirational. Like I think for people like me and Miguel, you know what I mean? Us being enthusiasts and all. Where does that actual passion come from?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been collecting watches for years, but really, what I think when it comes to like the business aspect of getting things ready and really kind of blazing my own path in making these watches is I've always been a customizer and fabricator. So cars, motorcycles, firearms, all sorts of stuff. Anything you name, I've probably customized one of them. And so when I really fell into watches and my career kind of started, and I had the funds to start collecting watches, it sort of just became an apparent goal that I needed to get hands on and make my own watch. Just kind of fits my personality, I guess.
Cool. That's awesome. Now, speaking of cars, domestic or import?
Both.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, it's so funny when you get into, well, I don't know about P. I guess we never really talked about cars, but same thing for me. The whole thing started with cars and buying them and custom buying things for them or whatever. Now I've never custom made or custom done anything to a watch, but the mechanics are still there. It's very similar, It's I think when you have that collecting gene, whether it be for collecting coins or something, it's a disease, really. I mean, it gets you in a lot of trouble with with your girlfriend, with your wife, with your family members. It just becomes an addiction that I guess you don't even see it, right? And you're spending all this time, all this money, and then people from the outside in, they're like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
So that's totally cool. You mentioned that, P. And yeah, definitely. This is definitely a passion project for Darren. So. So that's super cool, man. No, we're super looking forward to the production model. P, I think you had mentioned something about the price point.
Yeah, you mentioned the price point was going to be 4K. Have you gotten any feedback from people? And is that still the projected price?
Yeah, so the price, I'm going to push it up a little bit because of the different movement that I'm using, but it's only going to be by the difference between the Yetta movement and the Boucher movement. So it's probably going to be around $4,300. So just up a couple $100 for a movement that's on like a whole nother realm. And still, I mean, looking at the price point, I know that I'm a nobody in the watch world, right? When it comes to watchmakers and
you
all
may
this
feel
crazy
like
stuff.
that, but you're about to be a somebody.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I know that my price point, I mean, most other watches using this movement are above $8,000. And so I think the package that I'm putting together of a handmade, like literally handmade with my hands, manually machined, hand-done guilloche dial, hand-done finishing, a handmade leather strap, and a handmade buckle that I'm going to be making for it. And the caliber of movement, I mean, I think, in my opinion, I think it's a bargain. I would love to sell it for more. And if this first run is successful, I'll definitely reevaluate that price point. I've gotten some pushback from just random people who reach out to me on Instagram and are asking me to make stuff for them. maybe they are not seeing the vision that I'm seeing, but the good news is only 20 watches. 5 of them are spoken for already, so I only have 15 watches to sell.
Right.
I'm certain that I can find 15 people that are as passionate about it as I am, especially because the plan is to kind of travel around. I'll be out in Orange County at OC Chrono get together in a couple weeks, so I'll be out there this month just to meet with some people, show them what I'm working on, and that's kind of the plan, is just focus on enthusiasts, because I only want to sell watches to people who really care about them and care about the story that's behind them.
And just so people know, the only thing that you're getting imported is the movement, correct? Everything else you're making, right?
Pretty much. I mean, so I'm purchasing the sapphire crystals, the gaskets, the movement, and the crown, because I'm using screw down crowns, and I don't have the capability to make those in house yet. Everything else is pretty much handmade.
How hard is it to sign the crown? Does that have to be made in the production process, or can you sign it afterwards? Or
it depends how you do it. So you can use like a laser.
Oh yeah.
To engrave it, which is probably the easiest and the cleanest way to do it. You can get an engraver to actually hand engrave it, which would be really cool. Or you could do like a etching process. I think the biggest difficulty is getting it aligned, so when it's screwed all the way in, that it is properly oriented.
Oh yeah, right.
I think that's a big, especially when you see some like brand new Rolexes and the crown is crooked,
sideways,
screwed all the way in. Yeah, it sends shivers down my spine. So.
Now the sapphire crystal, is that air coating, I'm assuming?
Yes, yeah. So internally, AR coated on one side.
Purple.
For the dial side.
What color are you choosing to put on?
I can get whatever I want. So anything is really available. I kind of like the purplish.
That's cool.
Tint.
Yep. Well, you mentioned. Let me move on to the strap, because you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to kind of elaborate a little bit. So you mentioned something previously about the idea of whatever strap the watch comes on, you want people to leave it like that, which I get it, because you're the designer, you're the engineer, so you want people to respect the way that it came, which I'm totally cool with that. And I've seen your watch on the rubber strap. I saw it on that leather strap, but also in one of your images, you showed like a stainless steel bracelet. So what, what strap is it going to come on? And furthermore, would you be open to the idea of supplying different straps to your consumers, kind of like a Vacheron overseas, where you could change the straps? Yeah. Is that an option? Have you considered that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have been toying around with the idea of producing a metal bracelet. It's just not commercially viable with my manufacturing process. So to hand make every single link to taper and to integrate and screw together, it would be an insane amount of time and money that I would have to charge for it. So in the short term, the near future, I don't see a metal bracelet as an option. But like I said, I'll be working with that strap maker in Mesa, and she makes really incredible leather bands. So the plan is to include a leather strap that I kind of, so whatever the dial, however the dial speaks to me, like the color tones and the guilloche patterns, I'm going to choose a leather option that matches, in my opinion, the best with that. Something that I was kind of thinking about was, since she'll have the patterns to make these straps, and she'll be making 20 plus of them at a time for me, I kind of want to throw her business card in there, and then maybe set up like a discount code where I'll eat some of the cost if one of my customers wants to get another strap option. Maybe I'll eat like 15-20% of that cost, and they can buy directly from her.
That's cool. That's super cool. No, that's exciting. So if I'm understanding this correctly, are you going to supply this watch then on a rubber and a leather? Are you going to give people both when they buy the watch, or not?
It'll just be a leather strap. So the rubber that I have on my prototype is just a modified rubber strap.
Got it.
I've actually been playing with a couple concepts. So I saw this awesome guy on Instagram who makes straps and keepers, and he actually 3D printed a rubber strap mold
Ooh.
to or some like 2-part rubber silicone in and make rubber straps. I thought that was really cool. So I have a 3D printer, and so I modeled up the mold in Fusion 360, and so I just need to print it out and just do some testing and prototyping with it. I don't know it's not a huge priority when it comes to like the production, so I'd rather work on the cases than work on that. But maybe sometime in the near future, I'll have some custom rubber straps available, because I really want to include something that is more water resistant. So whether it's rubber, or maybe I can get the strap maker to make something in like a waterproof canvas or something like that, that might be an option as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I recently heard an interview with the CEO of Elang & Son, and he was talking to Ben from Hodinkee, and they were talking about that new Odysseus, whatever watch that they released.
Odysseus
or whatever. Yeah. And, of course, it got a lot of hate, and that's not what I'm going to talk about. But what I am going to talk about is they asked him why. Why now? He's like, you know what? For years, over 10 years, people are our customers that actually buy our watches have been asking for a sports model, and the reason why is because they love our watches, they wear them all the time, but whenever they go on vacation, they can't get in the water, they can't go skiing because of the leather strap. So we wanted to give them something where they could switch it up and have more of a sports watch. And that's the reason I'm kind of asking about the rubber strap, because if you do offer it on leather, you hit the nail right on the head. You maybe want something people could take to different places, right? Because your watch is beautiful, and it could go from the beach to maybe an office, or vice versa. So
yeah, I mean that's kind of the concept, right? Is a dressy sports watch. I mean, I wouldn't ever market it as like a dive watch. I mean, I want it to have enough water resistance where you can jump in the pool and swim with your family and do that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to put like a 1,000-meter guarantee.
I don't know if you mentioned how is the water resistance on it and what it's going to be.
So I haven't done any official testing. I mean, the way that I construct it in the sandwich and everything is gasketed in the screw down crown, I would assume it should be at least 100-meter water resistant. I'm going to build a pressure chamber and do some testing and just verify that it's good. I don't know if I'll put like a guarantee water rating in there, but I know that it can be submerged and it'll be fine.
And listen to this, people. He said he's going to build his own water pressure chamber. Be inspired. Crazy. Be inspired. Okay.
That's insane. So have you invested, now you don't have to throw a figure, but I'm assuming you've invested a pretty penny into your machinery, right? And your equipment?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely.
How does is it your girlfriend, your wife?
My girlfriend.
Does she give you any crap about it? Or is she cool with you spending all this time, all this money on this?
No, yeah, she's awesome. She's incredibly supportive. I mean, we both have our own careers. We don't have any kids. We just have the dog. So we kind of do our own thing independently, and we don't give each other grief about what we're spending money on, what we're investing in, and stuff like that. Cool. So she's now awesome. You
mentioned something. Yeah. You have your own career, so you have a full-time job, right? For everybody listening, this is just a passion project for you. That's crazy, man. I could only imagine. So give us an idea. How long does it take to make a case? I guess from scratch. Like you take a block of stainless steel, whatever. How many hours does it take you to have not a finished product, but just the actual case designed to be like, okay, boom, here's the case, it's ready to be assembled?
Yeah, so it's kind of a tough question to answer because, like you mentioned, I have a full-time career, so I'm not like working in the shop 40 hours a week and able to time it. It's kind of like when I have time, and I don't really log it that much. I kind of in my head, what I'm thinking is if I were focused only on making watches, if I'm doing like a production run. So I guess to preface, the way that I make watches, everything is manual. So it's on a manual milling machine, on a manual lathe. So every operation is with my input. So there's no CNC here. Everything is all fixturing, making cuts, all on my manual equipment. So with that being said, I don't make one case at a time. So with this production run, I'm doing the same operation 20 times in a row, and then I'm resetting up my machines and doing the next operation 20 times in a row. I think that if I was solely focused on making watches, I think my production cycle would be around 3 months
Per
start to finish
Oh wow, that's pretty short, right?
for like 20 watches, 20, 25 watches.
Don't people? I mean, this is maybe a rumor or something. Don't they say Rolex watches take like a year or more to produce or something? Like one? I mean, I don't know.
I can't see why. I mean, they have so much
Right?
automation in their production. I don't believe that for
Well,
a
people,
second.
throwing that crap around just because of the sports models being, scarcity of them and all this, which that's
Yeah.
a
Well, I think they've come out and said they just don't want to make anymore, which I respect that.
yeah, they don't.
I feel them there.
It's gonna catch up, just I mean, look what's
Yeah.
happening right now, right? It went from everybody wants them to Watchfinder discounting them. Now I don't know why they did that, and there's a ton of speculation, but I know the market is softening, especially in Asia with everything going on. So I think that has something
Yeah.
to do with it. And Rolex projected it because they're like, look, there's this huge demand now, but it's gonna fix itself. Um,
Yep.
but let me talk about that dial. I know you kind of mentioned something about the dial, about the different
Mm-hmm.
colors and everything. So every or maybe okay, maybe not the color. So you have a guilloche dial, which is incredible and it's beautiful and it looks super super cool. But I saw some different colors in your Instagram. So like a purple, like a
Mm-hmm.
blue. What are you going to be offering your customers? Different colors, or what you're talking about is the finishing, the guilloche finishing is going to have different patterns. What are you specifically talking about? What's going to be different again?
Both.
Oh, both.
Yeah, both really. So I have the ability to do really any color that somebody would want, and so I may pull some interest if there are potential customers out there who want a specific color combination, dial, strap. I'm open to talking about that. I mean, I'm only going to make stuff that I think is dope. So if I don't like your idea, I'm not doing it. End of story. Uh, but I can do basically any color. And so with the Rose engine that I built, I have a bunch of different options, and I'm still learning. Every time I go out there and do some engine turning, some guilloche, I'm learning something new. So as I'm making each dial, I'm going to be trying out different stuff, only picking the absolute best dials that I'm producing, and they're going to have different patterns on them. And then I'll kind of just pull inspiration from elsewhere and kind of choose color schemes to go with those dials. And then, like I said, if a customer really wants something specific and it's an awesome idea, I'm totally open to doing that too.
That's super cool. Well, since we are on the topic of dials, I was going to ask you something about kind of the dial. And one of the questions that I had is you have two types of indices on your watch that I've noticed. One of them is kind of underneath the dial, so more like a sandwich style, and the other one is
Mm-hmm.
the applied indices right on top of the dial. So, are you married on one of them? Are you not? And also, will you be putting your brand name on the dial and any numbers, or just indices with no numbers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I want to kind of experiment with that a little bit more, and that will probably be another thing that is variable from watch to watch, is how the indices are laid out and how they're constructed. So I like applied indices. I don't like buying them from an overseas supplier. So I want to figure out how to make some applied indices, or there are some other companies that are making really cool ones that are machined or laser cut in house, that are kind of like a mix between applied indices and like a chapter ring. So I might play around with that a little bit. Um, so I guess it's
So
variable. So
the applied indices you have on that watch now, did you buy them from somewhere else? Did you machine them yourself?
so on the Mark II prototype, it has like the negative space indices that show the brass movement ring underneath. I didn't actually use the dial that has the applied indices, but I got those from like a eBay
Oh,
supplier.
Cool.
got it.
All right. Now that more people know about you and the brand, do you have any pre-order set up?
So no pre-orders. I'm not taking anybody's money until I can have a watch to put in their hands. But with that being said, there are 5 watches that are spoken for of the
Right.
15.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, I think it really just gives me more confidence in what I'm doing, right? In terms of my design ideas and how I want to assemble the watches. I think if you're taking money up front, it puts crazy deadlines on you, and I just don't have the time for that, especially with my career.
Absolutely. What about any future plans for any other complications?
Yeah, so the awesome thing about working with Vaucher is the movement that I'm using is like their most basic movement, and it's still insanely finished compared to anything else that's commercially available. And the ones I'll be using are just hours, minutes, second, time only. I can get that same movement with a date. I can get movements with big date. I can get tourbillons. I can get annual calendars. I can get chronographs. I can get basically any complication that's out there that isn't like proprietary to a brand. The issue is I have minimum order quantities to meet.
Right.
So if I wanted to do a tourbillon, I would have to buy 5 tourbillon movements, and that's a hefty investment. So it would be something that I would be open to like working with people. So after this first production run goes out, if there's enough interest in what I'm doing and people want some awesome complications, I can get it and I can make it happen.
Okay.
I mean, the tourbillon, I think it's a minimum order quantity of 5. And obviously I have to have one, so I would just need 4 other people who are interested.
You gotta have one of everything, man.
Exactly.
So you said 5 of them are already spoken for. Have they given you money, or did they say, "Hey,
No.
I'm gonna buy one"?
Yeah, so they've offered to give money, but I've refused. I just don't want to take anybody's funds until I have something to give them.
Got it. Now,
In
you
return.
mentioned something about depending on what the customer wants, you're going to do the dials, this and that. For these people, did you sit down with them and kind of say, okay, well, what color do you like? How are we going to do this? Or the conversation hasn't gone that far?
Most of them want me to do what I think is best.
Oh, that's super cool. Wow.
Which are the best kind of customers to have.
Yeah, you can't disappoint them, right? Because when you have high expectations, and I'm thinking of this, and you come up with something different because everything is tailored, then it can maybe be put you in a weird situation. But
exactly.
Now, I guess a question for the future would be: are you going to sell these watches exclusively through your website, or are you thinking? Well, I think I answered my own question just because of the production run that you're going to do. But I was thinking, if you get big enough in the future, would you consider a distributor or like an AD? That way you could solely focus on production rather than marketing and, sales and all that other stuff. Or do you want to do everything in-house?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think maybe I might have skipped your question about the website. So I have the domains that I've purchased, and I've built the websites out, like preliminary website. I'm still kind of gathering some media, so I have some awesome friends who are coming over and like recording while I'm working and taking awesome pictures. So I'm kind of building the website up. So I could launch it anytime I want. I just don't have anything to sell, so I'd be paying to host the website. I don't really have any way to generate income from it. I mean, I think I have enough media to kind of launch it, so that'll probably be within the next week. So I think I can meet my December 15th goal of having the website launched at least. So I'd like to have that. I really want to keep production low. I mean, the like most desired outcome would be people are crazy about these 20 watches that I produce, and they sell out super quick, and then I can focus on making watches full time. I mean, that would be ideal, right? But we'll kind of see what the market has to say about that. But I want to keep everything in-house, or as much as I possibly can in-house. And so I want production quantities to be low. So, I mean, maybe like full swing production, I'm making 50 watches a year. And I want to keep my schedule set up where I have time to interface with potential customers and then other enthusiasts, because above all else, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm a watch enthusiast.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason I'm doing all of this. And so I don't want to lose touch with that and become more of a businessman than a watch enthusiast. So my enthusiasm comes first, and everything that I do is motivated by that. And so staying in touch with the community. So I'm involved in some local Arizona groups. We get together every month, an awesome group of guys and gals. But I want to kind of branch out. And so split up my time. So sometime producing watches in the year. So like I said, a 3-4 month production cycle. And then the rest of the year, just kind of go out and network and attend events and meet up with people and just show off the stuff that I'm working on and just keep everything in house. So sell through my website, sell person to person as I'm traveling, and kind of how I want it to be.
That's pretty cool. So since you finish your production model for yourself, and that's what you're wearing. By the way, we forgot the wristwatch check. So Darren, what are you wearing?
So I'm wearing my Mark II prototype, purple guilloche dial, gold hands, and the gold indices.
That purple was nice.
Yeah,
nice.
It's especially in the.
I think it's kind of divisive. I mean, some people like the purple and gold. Purple's my favorite color, so I had to do it. So it's what I like, so it's what I did.
Right
I think it's super cool, especially the way that it plays with the light. I mean, if everybody listening, go to Darren's Instagram account. He has some really cool videos, some really cool pictures. I mean, if I were to describe this watch, it's like a Audemars Piguet Royal Oak married with almost like a Patek, right? And it has that. It's very much in line with everything that people like right now. Sports models that look very industrial, I guess you could call it. I don't know how to describe them, but you got those very kind of square lines, but then you got that round dial, of course. And we didn't even talk about the finishing on the case, because you got some polishing, right, and some brushing.
Yeah, so I have some circular graining, circular brushing around the bezel, polishing on the chamfers on the sides of the case, and then vertical graining on the case body. So a couple different finishes on the case.
Speaking of the case, I really, really, really like that case. What inspired that? Like, what was your inspiration behind the case? Because I think it's pretty dope.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I've always been a fan of like the 70s era sports watches, like kind of when the Royal Oak launched and kind of started that trend that has never really died down. I pull a lot of inspiration from like the Vacheron Overseas, even the Rolex Oyster Quartz. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that watch and the K-shape on that. I love that watch. The Tudor North Flag, it's just sort of that design element where it's kind of a rugged exterior, but still classy enough to be dressed up, right? And I think the combination of that not rough, but kind of like a rugged exterior in the case shape, it just looks sharp lines, squared off edges, married with like the guilloche dial. I think in my opinion, it's a good balance between like rugged watch and something that is dressy,
very elegant. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's so funny, 70s style watches and everything. I mean, they're huge. Look at what Timex did with the Q Timex. That thing's just been selling out, and it looks very 70s inspired. I guarantee that a few years ago they would have came out with that, everybody would have laughed at them and said, what the hell is that? But there's just something about this whole steel craze, right? I don't know what the hell's going on. But so that's what you're wearing. P, what are you wearing?
The Bulova Curve.
Nice. I saw the unboxing for that. How do you like that watch?
Oh, I'm loving it. It is beautiful.
Precisionist movement on it?
Precisionist movement on it, yes, sir.
That's awesome.
The world's first curve movement. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Darren, let me pick your brain. So P and I love Bulova. We really do like their watches, the brand. How do you feel about Bulova?
I like Bulova. I mean, I don't own any. I mean, I have a Caravelle, which is kind of like a sister brand of Bulova. But I think they're beautiful watches.
Well, you have a diver, right? Devil diver? Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're definitely part of the family. No, I've been looking at the Lunar Pilot, the Bulova Lunar Pilot. The only thing that's putting me off is the size, but man, it's such a cool watch and the history of it, and it just kind of sucks. Like it just really makes me sad that Bulova has such a rich history, and they come out with a turning fork, and they have so many cool things, but because of my personal opinion, I've said this before, because of the sizing And maybe the design of their new watches, a lot of people put them off, and they're like, "Oh, they're grotesque," or that precisionist looks like a beast or like a monster. But I don't know. I think Bulova has a lot of potential to go back to what they were, or maybe change their trajectory and maybe get respect. Because I mean, look how much respect Omega gets for their moon watch, right? Everybody and their mom loves that watch. They respect it. Well, Bulova did something really cool too with the moon watch they had. It wasn't a production run. It was just for one astronaut. It sold for $1.6 million. But people just don't give it the credit that it deserves, or they don't even know about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, moon watch, okay, whatever. But
You know what, Miguel? You need to just go ahead and pull the trigger on that, bro.
I know. I've been trying to.
Yeah, don't talk about it. Be about it, man.
Yeah, I wish it was that easy. I gotta convince a certain someone. But what am I wearing today? I'm wearing the watch that started it all for me, my Seiko SKX 007. So this guy, I'm sure you guys know this watch, of course. You know, it's everybody has it, but it's such a cool watch. Something about it is for less than $200, the watch that you get. The bracelet is garbage, so I changed it. But other than that, I mean, it's a really cool watch, and I don't know, it's just kind of rugged enough to where I could beat it up and not feel bad about it. I mean, now they're discontinued, so maybe I'll be a little more careful with it, but I think it's pretty cool. I think the SKX is definitely cool. Do you like Seiko, Darren?
Yeah, I like Seiko. I definitely respect the brand. I own a vintage Seiko that my dad gave me.
5 or what do you?
It's a kinetic, so I can't remember the reference off the top of my head. Yeah. But it's a titanium kinetic. The reason my dad gave it to me is so kind of a little backstory. So I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. My dad worked for an oil company over there. I just remember as a little kid hanging out with my dad when he'd get home from work, and he would be winding that watch. So he'd be like spinning the rotor to wind up to power the capacitor. And it's a good memory that I have. And I was talking with him about it, and I asked him if he still had the watch, and he went and pulled it out of his closet and gave it to me. So I replaced the capacitor in it. So it's kind of a sentimental piece to me.
That's super cool. So if you don't mind me asking, how long have you been in the States for?
I moved here in 2001.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Wow.
Cool.
That's super cool. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You mentioned that in the 40 and 20 podcast, and they're like, well, that's a whole another episode on itself. I seriously thought you were like military, because that's what happens. You know, people, military, you go all over the place or whatever. But that's cool that it was something completely different. So I could appreciate that. Now, you want to talk about your tattoo before we move on to other things? I know you have a movement tattoo on your arm, a huge one.
Movement?
I do.
VMT?
No.
Yeah.
He's about to hang up on us right now, Pete.
Just joking.
I've got a Chinese sports movement tattoo. So I have a kind of a blown up assembly diagram of a Vaucher movement. So it's their micro rotor movement, super thin. It's like 2.6 millimeters. The actual movement has an awesome micro rotor. And so I kind of wanted something to commemorate getting into watches and my love for watches and watchmaking, and kind of like just set myself up to, you know, be able to like look at it and remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing, putting in long hours, late hours in the workshop. And it was actually awesome because I posted on Instagram and I tagged Vaucher in it, and they reposted it and they reached out to me. That's actually how I got to meet up with Sven from Vaucher out in Vegas. Is he invited me out there to meet up with him and show me what they're working on and give me their catalogs and talk about building a partnership with them. So kind of maybe a strange way to get a foot in the door with them.
It worked.
It worked. Yeah. That is hot. Boy, that is hot.
Is there a reason why you chose to tattoo that movement rather than like an Omega movement or something more, I don't know, in line with the industry? Because Vaucher, I mean, I don't think a lot of watch enthusiasts really.
Yeah, they're very behind the scenes. The reason I chose them is, well, I mean, they had awesome diagrams on their website of every movement kind of blown up like that, so it kind of was a perfect fit. But also, I just really like the brand. I really respect what they're doing in helping small independent watchmakers get top tier movements in their watches. and their ability to work like with low minimum order quantities. Like I said, Tourbillon at 5 minimum order quantity is pretty phenomenal,
Right.
especially for an independent who wants to like get something awesome into the case that they're making and the dial that they're making, and just put that package together. So I just really respect what they're doing, and being able to help the little guys. I think there's a lot of conglomerate watch companies out there that would love to crush every independent brand out there, but these guys working with us is cool.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good segue. Speaking of big companies, I wanted to get you guys' take on that new Omega watch, that that Omega Seamaster 300M limited release for the James Bond film. Have you guys seen it? What do you guys think about it?
I like it. I just don't like the bracelet, the mesh bracelet. I'm not a big mesh guy, I guess. But overall, the watch is beautiful, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a gorgeous watch. I like the mesh bracelet. I think it kind of harkens back a couple decades ago and kind of fits with their Bond theme. Just seems kind of Bondy. I mean, I'm not going to buy one, but I think they're awesome.
Well, how do you guys feel, if you had to compare, how do you feel about this one versus the first one they just released, the Majesty, whatever that thing was called?
For His Majesty's Secret Service, I think I like that one better.
You like that one better? What about you, Darren?
Yeah.
I think I like this newer one. I think I like it more.
And I'm with you, Darren. And here's why. Here's the reason I personally think this one. Number one, that Milanese bracelet is really cool. I can't believe my boy Pete doesn't like it, because he has Timexes that look very similar to that.
No, not. I said
yes, you do. Yes.
The bracelet, man. It's just the bracelet. I'm telling you.
Check it out. The now I need to pull up a picture, but the Q Timex, the bracelet. I'm not saying it's the same one, because it's not, but it kind of has that feel to it, right? Am I going crazy here? I don't know.
I think so.
But anyways, what I like about this specific one is the fact that it's not super branded to 007, and the reason why is because there's a YouTuber I was watching, and he kind of hit the nail on the head with it. He said, if James Bond was wearing a watch, he wouldn't be wearing a watch that says 007 all over the place and have like all this heavy marketing.
Come on now, we know that, but come on, let's keep it real. It's still a cool, cold-blooded watch, man.
No, but check it out. This new one. I mean, it does give it some homage or reference to the actual movie, but in a very subtle way. It has that little arrow right in the dial or whatever, and in the back it actually says 007. It has some very subtle things to it that you as a watch enthusiast would know. Oh, this is a James Bond watch, but it stands on its own. It doesn't need to say James Bond on it. You know what I mean? And then the Fotina actually kind of meshes in with that Milanese bracelet. And the reason why is because for this specific film, I know they work very, very closely with Daniel Craig. And he had a lot of input on this watch, and says they're bringing back that Aston Martin car, that old school one in this film. He wanted to have that kind of marriage between an old field kind of vintage inspired watch that was kind of married with that car, so I think that's pretty cool. What I don't like is the price tag, $9,000, I think. It's kind of what they're talking about. But other than that, I think it's a really, really cool watch, better than the other one in my opinion, but whatever. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna buy either one of them, so so what does it matter, right? All right. Well, before we finish here, we just like 40 and 20, and we got this from them. We like to talk about other things. So we talk about movies or food or whatever happened in the last week that inspired you or you want to recommend to people. So Darren, we'll let you go first. What do you got?
Yeah, definitely. So I know that listening to past episodes, I know that you guys are hip hop heads.
Yes.
And so I have a hip hop recommendation. So probably in my opinion, the most slept on hip hop album ever to be produced, definitely the most lyrical, is Honor Killed the Samurai. And the artist name is K.A. And it's kind of a mix of like spoken word and rap. But it has an awesome theme. So so Ka is from Brownsville, and so the whole album, start to finish, is like storytelling of him comparing growing up in the hood in Brownsville with like feudal Japan in like the samurai code of honor,
Interesting.
and just something that it's been out for a couple years, and like I've listened to it a billion times, but I can still put it on, listen cover to cover, and hear something new every time I listen to it. So I definitely
Okay.
recommend checking that out.
Check that out.
Wow. Very
Okay,
Wu-Tang
cool.
inspired, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost has Wu Tang vibe, a little more spoken word, a little more poetic than Wu Tang, but
Okay.
similar
I have to
vibe.
Thanks for the
check it out.
recommendation. Got to check it out. P?
Yeah. Um, I didn't really do much this week but work. But what we did yesterday, we got the Disney Plus, and
App.
yeah, and we watched Home Alone, the original,
Yep.
the first one, and that movie still holds hella weight. It's still a great movie. You know what I mean? I laughed all through it. Like I just thought it was just hilarious, and it's just funny. Just thinking I could get the same laughs off the movie I done watched probably 100 times over and over and over again when I watch it. You know what I mean? So that's about all I got. Really, just we watched Home Alone last night.
You know what's super cool? If you go on Netflix, they have a thing that Netflix released called "The Movies That Made Us." It's almost they had the first one was "The Toys That Made Us," which is really cool because me being an '80s guy, Darren, '80s, you from the '80s as well? No.
I was born in '89,
Okay.
so I spent a
Okay,
couple
I'm
months in the
83.
'80s.
I know. I know. We got the old man P over there, but just kidding.
74, 74, 74.
74. But anyways, so they have this thing called the movies that made us, and they actually have different movies. They talk about Ghostbusters, and Home Alone was actually one of them. And it was really cool that they thought it was just going to be another holiday movie. They didn't think much of it. The studio, in fact, only gave them a $10 million budget. Well, they went over that pretty fast, and they were close to, I think, 19 or something like that. So, anyways, the studio, midway through filming everything, they said, we're out. Just close production is not happening. But one of the main guys that was running the movie had already spoken to somebody else, to another studio, and they picked up where they left off, and that's how the movie got made. And they talked about John Candy, and they talked about it was just incredible. And they're like, the
Wow.
success that this movie had, nobody could ever project it. I mean, they were number one in box office when it came out for like 8 or 9 weeks or more. I mean, it's incredible. And now it's a classic. Just like I don't know if you guys like the movie Elf with our boy Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
such an awesome movie.
Well, I know
So
that first movie studio company feeling stupid right about now. Yeah.
Oh
That's
yeah.
just like a story of Purple Rain. I don't know if y'all know that story. I'm a big Prince fan too.
no,
Richard Pryor had his own production company, and Jim Brown was head of it. So they brought the film to Richard Pryor's company, and Richard Pryor's company said, "No, we're not doing it because we don't feel like a black audience will like this movie." So turn around, they went somewhere else, and the movie just blew up. You know what I mean? So I heard Richard Pryor was kind of pissed about that, but
I bet lost a lot of
So
money.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy. Well, what I'm going to talk about is another Netflix film. So I've started watching The Irishman.
Robert
Great.
De Niro.
De Niro, Al
Yeah.
Pacino, Pesci, directed by I lost the name. Directed by a heavy-hitting director. I'll get the name of it, but yeah, it's an incredible movie.
Was it Scorsese?
It is. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for saying my
Yeah.
butt. Scorsese. It's crazy, man. It starts off a little slow, but the acting these guys do is just crazy. You're like, all right, I feel like I'm watching Scarface mixed with Casino mixed with other things because these guys are good. I mean, you just don't get that kind of acting. I mean, there's good actors out there, but just the gangster feel from these guys, it feels real, you know. And it's 3 hours long, 3 hours and 25 minutes, which is crazy. I'm 2 hours in, and I've been watching it in pieces, like 1 hour one day, another hour. It's too long, but it's good so far. I do recommend it. I mean, the acting's just crazy. I think Netflix, doing what they're doing is crazy. I know last year they had some Oscar buzz for that one film, and now they're going to create Oscar buzz with this film for sure. Maybe not the film itself, because it's not better than a Scarface or a Casino, but the acting is incredible, and the storyline is pretty good. I mean, of course, it's a gangster movie, you know. But I recommend it. Anybody who has Netflix, go check it out. It's pretty good. So yeah, that's what I got. And speaking of rap news, I just saw on the news this morning that Juice World, some kid, I guess, some young rapper, Juice World, he was gonna turn 21 and he passed away. Seizure, walking through an airport. So crazy what's going on out there. So rest in peace, guy.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Darren, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome. Hopefully we can have you in the future and talk to you and see what's going on with these models. We'd definitely love to check one in the metal at one point. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, I really appreciate having me.
People be inspired. Be inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, thank you so much once more. And as always, stay humble.